Welcome to another round of board game reviews by the Pixels and Paper Squad. My name is Ernie, and I'm here to take you through 5 Minute Dungeon. Now, 5 Minute Dungeon is a game developed by Connor Reed, and I'm going to be brutally honest, I'm not familiar with that name, and I don't know if I should be, but if I was not familiar with this name before now, I am definitely familiar with it as of, technically a couple of days ago. I got to play this game shortly before recording. I was actually going to do a completely different game, and then co-host Derek from the podcast brought this game over. He had just gotten it fresh off the boat from Kickstarter. This is a game I actually saw on Kickstarter while it was going through its funding phase, and I completely blew it off. I was like, dude, I'm not interested. This is not my cup of tea. Boy, was I wrong. But we'll get into that a little bit later. I want to go through a little bit of what the premise of the game is, just so you get an idea of where I'm coming from. I'm not going to lie, the last few reviews I've done have been, kind of long. This is probably going to be the shortest one because, this game is very simple. Okay, so first things first, let's get this out of the way here. 5 Minute Dungeon takes exactly that. You have a timer that you will probably use your phone for. There's actually an app that's really cute and tongue-in-cheek that you can use. You can download off of Google Play or the iTunes Store. There's even a website you can get it from, if I'm not mistaken, that's listed inside the box for the game. The general idea is you teaming up with other players. I want to say up to 5 players. And you're trying to get through this dungeon as fast as humanly possible. Fighting bosses along the way, and if you want to do a campaign kind of a boss run mode, that's highly feasible in this game. Main thing is I want to go over and show you guys a little bit of how this game plays, so you can kind of see what you're up against with this, and kind of make a more informed decision as to whether or not you want to check this game out. So we're going to take a minute to look at the components of the game, go over the rules, look at how the game is played, and come back and render a verdict. So first things first, let's take a look at the components of the game and go over the rules real quick. As you can see here, you have different types of cards. This is your magic card. You've also got a sword card, which is basically like an attack, melee attack. And then you also got your sprint card or your agility card. There's also your arrow card, which is basically like your ranged attack. And you also have your shield, which is your defense. Now, another thing you'll take notice here is that you will have multiple cards that have multiple symbols. You also have action cards that also, in some cases, allow you to instantly defeat a type of enemy card and also give you special player abilities. Your dungeon cards are going to be the ones you come up against the most. Each card has different symbols on them that depict the cards you will require to take them out. They come in the types of obstacle, person, monster, and mini-boss. And the mini-boss card requiring more symbols than your standard card to take out. Some even have special actions they require you to take. Now, this is your character card. This is the Barbarian. And the Barbarian also has on the flip side the Gladiator, which is the female variant. Basically, the only difference between the two, the male and female variants, are that on her case, she can defeat a person with a special ability. The Barbarian male can defeat a monster with his special ability. But for the most part, they are fairly equal. Now, this is one of the bosses. This is actually the first boss. Now, as you can tell, the boss card tells you how many symbols or cards, which cards and how many you need to defeat this boss. And also, it will show how many dungeon cards need to go in that section. That basically is how many enemies and tribulations you need to take out before you can get to this boss. You will also want to shuffle up your dungeon deck and place it face down on the boss character card, as I stated before. Now, another thing you want to do is gather up your class deck, and depending on whether or not you're playing with 2 or 3 to 4 players, you may want to add an extra class's deck with your class deck that's already chosen and place it on the left side of your character card. The right side of your character card is your discard pile. Sometimes you will discard cards from your hand as the game demands based on the cards you have drawn. This here is the app that you will be using. You can also select different narrators. John Bailey, some of you may recognize from the Honest Trailers deal, and Connor is the creator of the game. I'm not familiar with who Jess is. Forgive me. But yeah, you basically hit the play button and you're ready to go. Make sure you get 5 cards. You should always have 5 cards in your hand unless a card or game mechanic tells you otherwise. And you will draw back into your deck up to 5 cards as you discard and play cards. Now, we are kicking off, and I'm going to show you, and I'm doing this solo, so bear with me. It would normally go much faster, but as you see, I require so many symbols on each of these cards that I have to make sure that I come up with those to take out the card that I pull. Now, and also remembering to reinstate cards back into my hand as I let go of them. Now, in this case here, you see me doing discard and bringing cards back into my hand. And as you can see, even if I pull a card that has multiple symbols, I can use those symbols to take out a monster. And as the mini bosses I showed before, I'm going to have to crank out so many cards, to actually take it out. But once again, those doubles or the multiple symboled cards really come in handy with coming up against dungeon cards like this one. Something else you kind of want to be aware of, too, when you're playing is that there is a mechanic in this game that dictates that if you lay a card on the table, that card is played. You want to be careful with that and make sure that you're watching the other players who you're playing with. You want to make sure you're watching their hands, making sure they're not throwing out cards that you're about to play, so that way cards don't get wasted. And we're going to skip ahead, and what we're going to do is we're going to get to try and get as close to this boss as humanly possible so I can show you how fighting the boss works. And it's going to be super easy. You're going to wonder why I'm bothering to even show this to you. Trust me, it's really easy to figure out on your own, but just to kind of give you guys an idea of exactly what all goes into a boss fight and how to take out those bosses in a timely and orderly fashion. It's really going to be the hardest part of the game for you, other than, say, when you pull up a discard all your cards type deal or a trade card. So here, we finally got to the boss, and we have to pretty much just throw down these symbols as fast as we can because we have 46 seconds and counting on the clock. So as you see, we already got some of the symbols we need. We just got to keep building on that. If we can get all these symbols, we take out the boss, and it's pretty much, end of story there. And then there we go. We have all the symbols we need, all 3 agility symbols, all 3 ranged, or all 2 ranged, and all 2 sword symbols. So we beat the game with 27 seconds to spare, and the game is pretty much over right then and there. And then you would, once you finish this, you're not done, because technically there are more bosses for you to fight should you choose, like the Grim Reaper, who is the next boss in line. You've also got a Gorgon. There is the freaking dragon. And you've also got the Dungeon Master, who is the final boss of the game. Now, I will go ahead and tell you that if you did kickstart this, you do get the Kick 9000 as your 6th boss, and then you also get the Dungeon Master's final form as the final boss. So you can see he is quite childish with all the things you have to do to beat him. But now that that's done, and you have now roughly seen how the game is played, it's a poor showing for a solo effort, but let's render our verdict. So, let's go ahead and look at price point on this game. Those that back this game on Kickstarter will probably be the first ones to tell you that this game came in at a low buy-in. You were really spending about roughly $30 US. And, I mean, that is very much worth it for what you're getting. I mean, now granted, what I have in my possession is the Kickstarter edition of the game. Let me be clear with that. Because this game is technically not out for retail yet as of this recording. But the one thing I do want to point out is that there's a lot of good content. Even if I kick aside, no pun intended, I still have a solid game in my possession for the price point. So I'm imagining if this game is going to release at retail, even if it was like $40, $45, even $50, I feel like you're getting a lot. Next thing, let's look at art design. The art design in this game, in the components, the graphics, all that stuff, is really nice. I mean, it's got kind of a really cartoony, very, kind of, I guess for lack of a better comparison, it has a very, kind of Steven Universe or Adventure Time kind of vibe to it. That was at least what I thought when Derek was pulling the game out and showing it to me. I was like, ugh. And then once I really got a chance to really look at the components of it and the cards and everything, it was really neat. Like, I mean, just the aesthetic of the game is just very nice. It's refreshing. It's, I mean, and it is very indicative of its tongue-in-cheek nature and how much it doesn't take itself too seriously as a game. So now let's look at the rules of the game, the rule book, and how easy it is to pick things out. So this game has a pretty super slim rule book. I mean, this is nothing. I mean, it is super easy. Everything you need is clearly, laid out. Everything is just where it needs to be. The rules are super simple. They're very intuitive. The game is super easy to learn. We went through, I think we played like 6 hands of this game. And by the end of the first hand, I had a clear idea of what it was I was doing. I mean, Derek didn't even have to, and I'll go ahead and let's go ahead and be completely transparent here. I always find it kind of funny that I'm the one doing these videos, talking about the games and explaining rules, because Derek is actually the smarter one between the two of us, and he is usually way better at figuring out rules. But I found it really funny that he explained the rules to me in like a couple of minutes. And we started the game, we played it, and I mean, I had it down like that. I mean, this is a super easy game. The only one negative I will put on the game is that sometimes you can, because you're having to think within, a 5-minute spectrum of, what you do, and you need to be super fast, that sometimes I do feel like some of the enemies can be a little childish, or sometimes you might get tripped up, but that's not really a knock on the game. The game is really good, so I mean, I'm not faulting it for that. I'm just, pointing it out to you that when you play this game, you will probably get tripped up and accidentally put down cards that you didn't necessarily have to because somebody else was about to. Because they do have a rule that clearly states if the card hits the table, it is played. So the next thing I want to take a look at is the setup time. Setup time on this game is super fast. Now I will say when you're breaking the cards down and everything, if you're doing it, granted you wouldn't be playing this game solo, but if you were the only person breaking down cards, it would probably take a minute to get everything in and out. But this game is super fast to set up, and it's a super fast play. There's no excuse for it to take you more than like a few minutes. Probably a little less than the time it takes to play the game itself, to get everything set up and organized, or even break down to put away. Now, I've saved the best for last. Fun factor and replayability. This is going to be a game that I feel like if you have this in your collection, I feel like you would play this a lot. I mean, or even if you didn't play it like every single day or every single weekend or whatever, I feel like when you pull the game off the shelf, you would probably play it several times, if not all the way to completion. Like, you can even ask Derek, when we were playing this game, like I said, I want to say we played about 5 or 6 hands of it, and I distinctly remember, like, at one point, it was starting to thunderstorm and rain here, and, and Derek doesn't live that far away from me, but he wanted to get home and, not necessarily have to deal with, running through the rain and getting wet, on the way to his house. And I got really sad because he was packing the game up, and I was like, I want to play another hand. I was like, I want to do more. And he was like, I tell you what, I'll leave the game with you. You can play it with your family. And that's one of those things I like about it. Anybody can pick up this game and learn it. It is super easy. This is the easiest of a tabletop game as I've probably ever played. I mean, I think that, Connor Reed really had the right idea with putting this game together and making the components work, the rules work. Everything is pretty set. Probably the only one thing I do wish this game may have had, I wish that there were different difficulties, or maybe for those of us who are not as quick on the draw, I would say for your kids, maybe have like an easy mode, maybe a 10-minute dungeon, I don't know. But honestly, 5 minutes I feel is what actually is the perfect number for this game. I mean, everything just comes right through, and I mean, there is a certain level of urgency that hits when you start seeing that timer go down, especially when you only got you still got a few cards left in the deck to knock out in the dungeon before you even get to the boss. And, you see that it hits that minute mark, and you're just like, oh my god, dude, we need to get this going. I mean, literally, it turned into a game of, Derek and I just going boom, 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 get it out, or get this out of the way, get this out of the way. I mean, it was that frantic, and I've only played one other game like it. that's that kind of hand management and time attack type of game, and I must admit I like this game better than that one. So I guess if you can't tell by now, I'm going to give this game a very strong recommendation. This game is fantastic, and if you can find this game, like I said, it is not out yet on the retail level, but when this game becomes available, I would be keeping my eyes peeled for it. I'd be looking on BoardGameGeek.com and any other website, checking to see if this game is available, when it's going to drop for purchase for the masses. Thank you guys for watching this video, and please, take the time to comment and like. If you haven't already, go ahead and poke that subscribe button. Like I said, I mean, this video, I think, depending on what all's going on with work and everything else, this will probably show up a little bit later than I would have liked. But I'm going to try and still get it up by Thursday. And so if you're watching this and it is Friday, then maybe I made it. I don't know. Also, don't forget to check out my podcast. It comes out every Monday on nerd901.com, the Pixels and Papers podcast. And also take the time to check out my Brothers from Another Mother two-player co-op. Thank you again for watching, and may your successes be critical and your failures not so much. See you later.